Mike, Falls Church, Virginia, the great WMAL. Go.
Hey, Mark. Every night I listen to you talk about tyranny, but I've never heard of a tyranny that allows a talk radio show host to go on all night long talking about how tyrannical the government is. Isn't there a
Well, that's not how we define tyranny. Tyranny can be a slow process. Well, I'll give you an example of tyranny, Mike. I can't buy the kind of health care that I want to.
Well, what would you like to buy that you can't buy?
That's just the plan I have now. I'd like to keep it.
Well, maybe you can talk to one of these facilitators. What are they? I forget what they call them.
I don't want to talk to a facilitator, a navigator. I don't want to talk to anybody. I want to keep... I thought it's a free country. I can come and go as I want. Didn't you just say that? I don't want to talk to a government-subsidized navigator to determine what kind of health care my family can have. Don't you think that's kind of a personal decision?
Well, I'll tell you, I don't wake up every morning feeling the government...
I didn't ask if you wake up every morning. I said to you, you asked me a question, I answered it, and you're diverting. So let's try this again. There are millions of people in this country who like the plans they have. Unfortunately, they're not allowed to keep them. Regardless if the president thinks they're subpar or not, that's none of his business. So we can't own those plans anymore. Why?
Did they really have a choice? Didn't they get them through their...
What do you mean? Did who have a choice? I just said, I gave you my example. I want the plan that I have, and I'm not allowed to come January or February.
And I want that one that comes with a hot fudge sundae, but I can't have that either. This has nothing to do with hot fudge sundaes. This is a plan that's been offered to many, many people. You see the problems you're having with this, Mike? You talk about hot fudge sundae, me on the radio. I just gave you an example, and this is very, very important, Mike. Health care. I want to decide what kind of policy I can have, and I have the policy I want, and it's going to be taken from me. And you say, go talk to a navigator. And I say, what do you mean talk to a navigator? What is it the navigator's business? Mark, I'm saying that's not tyranny. I'd like to have lower car insurance. I'd like to pay less for my car insurance.
That's not what you're that is a false example. I have car insurance that I like. Of course I'd like it to be cheaper, but it costs what it costs. I pay for it. I have it. I want it. Hold on now, I'm educating you. So if the government says you can't have that policy at any price, where's the authority for that in the Constitution, Mike?
The government does say that. The government says you can't.
I said, where's the authority for that in the Constitution? Hello.
The government says you have a minimum standard of liability with your...
I don't want to have a minimum standard. I want to have whatever standard I want.
And you can't have that with car insurance, can you? So is that tyranny?
I don't have to have any car insurance. I don't have to drive. I'm telling you right now that if I want to purchase the policy that I have next year, make a private contract with the insurance company that I have right now, I can't. Why?
Mark, the bottom line is I don't think you or anyone else in this great country wakes up with thinking about the boot of the government on their throat.
I'll give you another example. Why should I pay over 40% of my, actually now, almost 45% of my income? And I'm not alone. You don't have to be super wealthy. You can be a small business person to federal and state government. Why should I? What's the purpose of that?
You know, back when this country really rose to prominence, the 60s, the 50s, you would have paid more than 90%.
Country didn't really rise to prominence in the 50s and 60s. In the 60s, the country was almost destroyed from within by left-wing kooks, as you well know, the 1960s movement. But that said, what?
We did not become a superpower until after the Second World War. Going into the Second World War, we were a backwater country.
What does that have to do with redistributing wealth?
Because tax rates were at 90% for the wealthiest, like you.
Now, tax rates were at 90% and almost nobody paid them because of all the exceptions to it. Now, we've been around this. Let me ask you something, Mike. Do you believe in liberty?
Of course I do.
What, can you define it?
I love this country. I think we've got a ton of liberty.
Can you define it? No, you don't love this country because of liberty. You love this country because of liberalism. Tell me, Mike, what is liberty?
It's analogous to freedom. It's being allowed to
Okay, let me try again. What is freedom?
Being allowed to do what you do that doesn't impose, negative consequences on
Well, that's clearly not the case. If 40% of my income's taken, I'm not free to do what I want to do. And it's clearly not the case if I want to buy the health care that I want to buy, I'm not allowed to. What if I want to buy a car that doesn't get 55 miles to the gallon, Mike? Is that freedom too? Because that's mandated. That's mandated down the road, isn't it, Mike? I can go on and on and on with all these federal regulations, but I won't convince you. That I'm certain of. Call again one day, Mike. I'll be right back.